Most investors and traders think that they need to be making more trades, more investments, more entries, more exits. And that can actually be true up into a point. But there comes a moment where you have to say, am I actually doing what I can to maximize and make the most amount of money I can with each individual position that I'm in? By focusing on that, you'll find that oftentimes it's not that you need to make more trades or more entries. And if you feel like you're doing a lot with a lot of different positions, but you're not going anywhere, then this might be exactly what you need to get things onto the right track. So it might look something like this. You have trade, and this is one of the top things people do, is they trade in order to trade. And they associate trading with making more money. And that could be true to an extent, but what I would focus on is swap trade in order to learn. So if you do trade, you're going to learn. Some people trade and trade and trade and think they just need to get reps, but they need to learn from every trade. And then also swap, learn, and trade. Okay, learn in order to trade. And then if you want to take it to one step further, then remove the L and earn in order to trade. Now, what does that mean? Well, again, you could focus on trading and trading and trading, but again, you might not be learning. And then you could learn from every trade, but you still are going to be spinning your wheels trying to maximize many, many, many different trades. Whereas if you can earn just by taking a trade or not taking a trade, then you can maximize your profits. So that's exactly what we're going to go into. So that's scenario one, is that you're going to go through this in your trading. Scenario two is that you're learning from every trade, but the best investors that I know are earning in order to trade or earning from making or not making trades. So how does that look? So let's break it down by Joe and let's break it down by Johnny. So with Joe, okay, let's do two ends for Johnny. With Joe, you might have that he is entering a position. So, for example, he buys, let's call it Apple stock at, let's say, $250. This is just an example. $250 Apple stock, and then Johnny does something different. You see, Johnny wants to enter. He wants to enter. But he doesn't just straight up buy Apple stock. Instead, he actually sells puts. He sells put options in order to be assigned / kind of forced to buy at $250. Okay? So Joe had the entry that he wanted. Johnny had the entry that he wanted. Joe enters at $250, and Joe, if he bought 100 shares, then he paid $2,000 or he paid $25,000. Okay, so this is the approach. $25,000 for 100 shares is what Joe paid. Now Johnny, if he wanted to buy 100 shares and make $25,000, for example, or not make, but just spend on buying his shares, because he sold put options, and let's say that both Joe and Johnny were watching the price at a certain level, let's call it 275, and they were basically waiting. They were waiting for that 250. Okay. So if that's the case, they're both kind of waiting, okay, for the 250. Then they're both going to be waiting and waiting and waiting. One is a limit order, one is a sell of put options. Now the difference is that while Joe was waiting, nothing was happening, and then he bought at 250. Whereas Johnny, while he was waiting, he actually collected what is called a premium in order to potentially be forced to buy at the 275. So he might have collected, let's say, 100 shares, so one contract let's just call it in order for an order like this, let's just say $500. Okay. $500 is the premium. So how does it work? Well, essentially, on one hand, you have a limit order with Joe, and no premium is collected. And then on the other hand, you have a sell put option, and the premium is collected. So they both enter and assign 100 shares at 250, but Johnny comes in with $500 extra by selling puts. So limit orders, essentially, you're going to get executed when it reaches that price as low as what you're willing to pay. And you say, this is the most I'm willing to pay. And if it reaches that 250, then it will execute for the 100 shares, for example. And then selling puts, essentially, you're saying, I'm committing to buying between, let's say, now and let's say 1 month from now is the expiration date. Okay, so that's going to be the expiration. 1 month expiration. And in this waiting period, just for committing to buy, at a price I'd be okay buying, I'm going to collect while waiting in that 1 month period. Now, here's the thing. You might not have this level or this price get hit. So what happens? You wait, and then this never executes. A put never executes. And you just essentially keep the premium. That is not the prettiest, but the premium you get to keep essentially. So you keep the $500, and you never even have to force an entry. You never even have to actually buy the shares and spend the $25,000. So you basically got $500 in order to wait. Now, what if it drops down? Well, then you're buying it drops from 275. You're getting assigned at 250, and you are spending that, let's say, $25,000. Okay, so $25,000 basically, plus you're also going to earn the $500 premium. So you basically come out with $25,500. Okay, so that's what you come out with, $25,500, because you get the premium as well. All right. Now, what's amazing about this, one person waits and buys shares and they get a clear buy order. One person sells put options to buy at that same price. They end up getting assigned shares, and they may pay that amount to purchase, but they also collected a premium before making the transaction. So they basically came out with more capital to take on the exact same position just by structuring their entry a little bit different. And so this is why options are seen as very complicated, and also why a lot of people that straight up buy puts or straight up buy calls, unless they're very far out an expiration date, a lot of the times those people end up losing money, or it can be extremely high risk, because the people that are selling puts or selling calls are often making money guaranteed no matter what. And so with this moment here of selling puts, this is how Johnny can get a better cash premium. Now, what is that? Well, if it was essentially what that is you're making 5%. So 25,000 times 1% equals, what is that? 250. So you're making an extra 2%. So you're getting an extra 2% just for structuring your trade like this. Now, this might not be very big of a deal if you're trading short term and you're doing something that's highly volatile and you're working with a little bit of capital. And that's why I said if you're trading and trading and trading, sometimes that can make sense to be trading at higher volumes, and that could be ideal if you're looking to learn the skill and make a lot of trades to turn profits. But if you wanted to just secure cash and make money and income basically guaranteed for taking the same trades you were already planning to take, then doing this strategy will be a possible solution for you to make more profit just for entering the same way you would have. Now, the price difference is going to fluctuate slightly. There's things to learn that you probably want to learn about, like delta and theta, time decay, things like that may be factored in. But generally speaking, when you're just selling puts or in selling calls, which we could talk about in a second, then you're going to be in a position where you're going to collect cash up front, as long as you're committed to being able to buy shares at the price. And ideally, it's at a price that you would be okay paying for the stock. Like, I wouldn't do this selling put order just to collect premium if I really didn't feel comfortable buying at $250. But if I feel comfortable buying at $250 and I'd say I'm actually waiting for that to happen and I'll collect a premium to do so, then excellent. It's a good entry. Now, this is good, and this is how I've kind of shifted as I've grown my capital. And this could be really ideal for people that are working with a lot of capital, where 2%, on 100K could be an extra 2K, or a $1 million position could be an extra 20K that you're making essentially. So that's why I really like this approach. Now that's essentially for buying Apple. So for buying Apple, this is a great strategy. Now, what happens if you want to use this approach for exits or selling? A lot of people think, I should just sell my stock because I'm up, or I should sell my stock because it might be a good exit. But there's certain instances where there might be a company that you would sell if it was at a certain price, but you're right now kind of in waiting mode as a holder. You're holding the stock and you're in waiting mode. It might be a sideways movement. It might be that you are just waiting for an entry waiting for an exit. So there's an exit kind of pending. All right. Or maybe there's something going on with the position where it's up high, but I don't want to sell, but I also want to make some cash. So I want to high and I want to limit the downside a little bit. Okay. So this kind of works in all instances. And the way to put it, if I had to explain to you, it'd be like if you were owning a company, for example, and you knew that you might want to sell your company. Let's say you own a company and you would sell your company for $1 million, but it's going to be a little bit before you sell it. Maybe it's going to be a year. And so while you're waiting, you might, for example, say, hey, I got this company that's worth $1 million. What if I, were to make this capital work a little bit? I have this asset that's worth $1 million. And then you take out a little loan against your company for $10,000 or $100,000, let's call it. And you put it into a 3%, or with recent yields of X.com, they launched, I think it's 5 or 6% per year. And you say, I'm going to put it there. So I'm going to take a loan out. I'm going to pay 4% on this loan, and I'm going to put it into a fund where I'm going to make 6%, and I'm going to make 2% on the value of this loan over the next year. And I'm just going to do that. I'm going to take out, let's say $500K. I could get a $500K loan, and I'm going to make $10,000 between now and the end of the year just by parking capital, basically. So think of it that way. You already own the shares. So when you're selling, let's say you own, 100 shares of Apple. And so essentially you're already good owning it, but maybe down the line you would consider selling it. So what do? Well, this is essentially the same, but you're selling calls. Okay. So you're selling calls. How does that work? Well, same way, just a little bit different. So this example would be best structured if you're at $250, let's say, a share. So you got 25,000, same amount, but you would look to sell, and you'd be interested in selling at 275. So 275. So then what you might do is you might sell calls at a 275 strike, and you're actually going to collect a premium with the same exact structure. So this structure that we did up here, essentially, imagine you collect a premium. So you put in the order to sell at 275. You'd say, I'm okay if I have to sell all my 100 shares at 275. That's what you do when you sell a call at 275. And you get a premium, and they're going to pay you, once again, let's say $500 for committing to potentially getting your shares called away. Right? You're selling calls, so you're saying, my shares at 275 can get called away. I would let them go at that price. And by committing to that, I'm going to get a $500 premium. So essentially, here's what happens. Same deal. You have the current time frame where you are now kind of waiting, and you enter this trade. And from now until the time of the expiration of the date, you are going to collect some money just for waiting. So that's the $500. Now, what happens if it reaches expiration over here and you never get your shares called away at the 275? So Apple stock doesn't go to 275. It holds at 250. Maybe it goes to 260. Maybe it goes down to 245. But it's just a company you're holding. Essentially, the shares might have fluctuated in value. You might even see your portfolio fluctuate. But it didn't reach that 275. Well, in that case, this expiration is reached, and there will be no call away of the shares. So you essentially keep your 100 shares at 250 or at the current price that they're at, and you're going to actually still keep your $500 premium. So essentially, let's say that at the end of the time, it's fluctuated up to 260 and it's back down to 250, just for example. It's at 250, which means your investment there is still at $25,000. Okay. And so at $25,000, you also collected $500. So essentially, just for waiting, you increased your share value by a whopping 2% over the time between when you entered and when you expired. Now, the beauty of that is, let's say that the stock prices went down a little bit, and rather than being at 25, they were down to 24, 49 or 245, let's say. Oh, it goes down to 245. You get to keep your premium, and now your shares are not worth that level of 2,500. They might be 24.5, but because you sold calls and collected that 500, your investment might have gone down, but you still actually are keeping a value of 25K because you got that $500 premium. Now, this is a more conservative approach, but highly effective approach that you can use in order to maximize some of your entries and your exits by utilizing options in a conservative way. And so this is exactly how I work with investors to optimize some of their strategies, some of their systems. And if you want more systems like this in order to make this happen in your portfolio, and you'd like to learn structured ways to do this with your entries and exits, as well as optimizing for the long term, then I would encourage you to simply schedule a call with me in the first link below. See if I can work with you inside your portfolio. If I earned your thumbs up, hit the like button. Do consider subscribing and letting me know what you think down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.